post October 7th, there was this void in the world, and everything I did up till then, 15 years of rapping as like the Jewish guy and always wanting to make all different kinds of content, it sort of just stepped right in to fill the void of like, hey, is there anyone going out to these protests in New York to do interviews, and who's doing it? And I was like, I guess I'll do it, and we're just making little movies. And at the end of all of them, we were like, bring the family home.
On this week's episode of Jew and Stew, I sat down with none other than Kosha Dillz, the freestyle legend, rapper, comedian, and proud Jewish New Yorker whose story is as raw as his rhymes. From ciphers in the streets of New York to freestyling outside of Madison Square Garden, Kosha has carved out his own lane in hip hop. One that's unapologetically Jewish, deeply personal, and full of heart. We talk about growing up the son of Israeli immigrants and what it means to be both a New Yorker and a Jew in the rap world, and how he's now blending comedy, film, and freestyle into something completely new. He's got a new project out and a Kickstarter that's bringing his next chapter to life. But first, he sat down with us. Here's Jew and Stew. Have a listen. Rami, Kosha Dillz, thank you so much for joining us today. I want you to know that the Chicago Jewish Alliance really feels your DNA as a part of us. You were there in the way beginning. I even remember texting you early on, Kosh, and being like, I have this idea for this thing. And you came to our event at DePaul University. So it's awesome to have you on and hear your story finally.
Yeah, great to be here.
So I want to know everything, because I know we got comedy, we got rap, and this trajectory of your career, being in this like ecosystem in the Jewish space. I'm sure there's just so much to dig into. But let's start with you on the East Coast. You got parents that are Israeli. What's your Jewish identity like? What's it like growing up on the East Coast? Do you have an attachment to it, or just kind of paint the picture of young Rami growing up?
Good question. What's the Jewish identity like? So, yeah, my parents are all Israeli. I mean, all of them. There's only two of them. My brothers as well, all two of them. Yeah, my brothers and my parents are from Israel, and I was sort of the first one that was born here. So that's sort of been a big part of my identity. Like, where are you from? Well, I'm like this, and I'm the only one that was born here. So I kind of isolated myself a little bit based on that. Now, in reality, there's nothing wrong with being the only one, but somehow I created that. And, my first language is Hebrew, and I forgot it. And I really got into sports, and we really became assimilated into like that town. I mean, there's a lot of Israelis and Jewish people in where I'm from in Edison, New Jersey, but I was like on the south side where there's not as many. Actually, I think I was one of the few Jewish kids in my school. Whereas like the north side had a lot of Jewish kids and a lot of Italian kids, a lot of Indian kids. And my school was just like a really big mishmash. And then sports was my thing. So, we became sort of like the sports family. So like you'll notice now Jewish kids coming up, there's Jewish summer camp, there's Jewish this camp, and there's Jewish sports clubs. And mine was like, soccer, wrestling, that was what we just did. We were just into sports all the way up until college. I think the identity piece kind of came as like, we're Israeli, and I did some Hebrew school, I did the bar mitzvah in Israel. And then slowly but surely, like the Jewish stuff really came probably, I would say like later in my 20s, in like my early 20s, so I really didn't have that experience up, but definitely like the East Coast, I feel like there's something way different. Like it would have been way different if I grew up in Chicago, for instance, and definitely attached. The East Coast, we're attached to it. Jersey, New York is like a Jersey, New York thing. Like we cannot picture ourselves living in any 48 other states.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It would take a lot out of us, And I went to California from there, by the way.
So growing up in the South of where you were in a different demographic, did you try to assimilate more to the like American kind of environment, or did you maintain kind of like, look, I always still have this kind of Israeli folks, this Jewish identity? How present was it in your like consciousness growing up?
Well, growing up wrestling, there was So, this is probably like, the middle school, high school, and we're going to summer tournaments and stuff like that. And seeing like, there was one other guy, Aviv Berkowitz, he was an Israeli. And, we would get like the countries of like our, in a singlet, and we would be at the tournaments and stuff. I mean, growing up. And Aviv, I remember he had an Israel one. And then there was this guy, Rami, but he was Lebanese, and he got the Lebanese one. And we would all have funky socks, and like, we were just, this is like how we styled ourselves. I'm talking like I would have like some really bright sneakers, definitely from wrestling. This is crazy that I'm even thinking of it. And I would get all this funky style because you would want to just pop on the mat. And then you obviously have to wrestle good. I really felt as if the heritage piece came because of like sports. I feel like I just went to the Olympics last summer, and it was like, oh, this is like what I live for. In fact, I'll probably go to the Olympics again in February. Like if I could fly out to Milan for like 3 days or something, I'll just to go, because the Winter Olympics are there. And I really felt that was it, and you go to Israel a few times in high school and stuff during the summer. And that's what we did. We visit our grandparents, family. But when you're there and you don't speak Hebrew and you forget that, it's really, you don't have the confidence to speak it. And it's a different kind of confidence. You could go on stage, but to communicate with people in a language, it's another level of confidence. And that is sort of where I'm at as an adult. Like for me, like my Jewish life is very connected to the language of Hebrew, which is a very revolutionary language. If you think about it, English is this colonizer language, Spanish, conquest colonizer language, French, colonizer language. They go all over, take over everything. Arabic, also, so many countries know it's colonizer language, and these conquests. Hebrew was revived, right? And for Jewish kids, people that speak Arabic, they don't like go to work on religion and read all the languages and have no idea what they're saying. This is a Jewish thing, right? We're like, Ma'anisha. We're like, what did I just say? I don't even know, but that's like what we know. We don't have to write and read Hebrew. We don't know what the words mean. So this is like a sort of disconnect between like our true purpose, I felt. And so for me, it was like really important as an adult, like to go back to Israel to learn Hebrew and really, really like crush that fear of just feeling less than. And then that was sort of the big theme when I was growing up, like feeling like, a little weird every time I go to Israel, what I mean? But, it was just what I was doing, as a kid. I was not like really had a choice, but like I liked it. But I really started liking it when I got older. And that's just the way I grew up, I guess, my parents, speaking back and forth in English and Hebrew. So for me, like, I realized that was like my big purpose, as I got older. But like the Israel swag really probably came from wrestling, because that was like, what we were connected to as like family name and stuff of that nature. Because in wrestling, it's like, I think there's this famous quote of my family. I think like my brother was on like the county tournament, and they're like, Evanesh. Who the fuck is Evanesh? It was like all like last names and stuff, and, people where, yeah, I mean that, you kind of develop that.
But that's still nationalistic. Like it's still, that's interesting, because I guess when you have that Israeli component plus your Jewishness, it's like, for me, I didn't have that Israeli component, and I would have had pride in that, because even growing up, Israel was it was a representation of strong Judaism, when the diaspora in America was a representation of a Nebuchadnezzar Jew. And so if I would have had that connection, I would be like speaking fluently, hopefully Hebrew nowadays, I mean, really, I craved some piece of my Jewry to be cool when I was growing up, and it wasn't. Like, it just wasn't for me where I was. My connection and coolness was my grandparents. My grandparents were this representation. My grandpa was a partisans fighter, and like he met my grandma in the forest, and they would kill Nazis like a Mel Gibson movie. And to me, that was pride. And that's what I clinged on to, and I found it. But when I was young and I was like just studying for the bar mitzvah, and I didn't understand holistically what my identity was,
I was really more into just trying to be a normal kid, you know, in the Americana, like Little League, and, you know, oh, we got to go to Sunday school. Why? No one else is doing that, you know, kind of vibes. So I just find that juxtaposition interesting. So, okay. So this is a little boy.
By the way, I felt the
yeah,
same way. I had my bar mitzvah in Israel, not because I was like, I want to be in Israel. I had my bar mitzvah. Like, I was just weird, and no one was going to show up to my party in America. So let's do it there.
I had nightmares about that I would have this party and that nobody would go, you know, to my bar mitzvah party.
And I still have those nightmares as an adult, just with my own concerts and events.
It really just manifests differently. Yeah, the anxiety doesn't go away. It probably amplifies as you get older because you got to add taxes to that. Okay, so like it's just so interesting. So your first transition to that stage, let's say, because like I feel like you have so many talents, and I don't even know how did it start? How did you realize that? I mean, you're very funny. We've all seen you on TV, you know, and your ability, and it's got to be similar to your ability to rap, to think quick on your toes. It's got to be the same neural pathways that you're utilizing there to come up with a rap right away on the spot and to come up with humor. What manifested first, and what did you say, hey, look, I got this skill, I'd like to show people it? What was that first catalyst there?
Yeah, the first time. So the first time, I remember the first time I got on stage, and it was at my school talent show, or it was like a school play, I think, where Joffrey, who was also a wrestling coach, Coach Joffrey, and I was in my AP history class, and it was a wrestling match of the split of the papacy. Like there's when Europe had two popes, and they made it like a wrestling match. So I came in from the outside of the auditorium with a chair, and I like boom, it was like we did like a wrestling thing, and everyone's like, oh my! And I just remember how epic that was. Now, it's really key to understand that I was performing, I wasn't rapping. So I really loved performance, and I haven't even thought of that before. And, you know, that grew to, I remember rapping at like some, you know, event when I was 17, and just, it was like, I don't know if it was like a Filipino party. My boy, Jerry, like they were just like that community. There was all these like community cultural kind of events that just seemed to have its own communities. And I remember it was like at a VFW or something like that. And I rapped. And then eventually I made my way to the New York Post Cafe, where I got into a rap battle and some called Bragging Rights. And that was like, hey, someone didn't show up. You know, Kosha Dillz, do you want to get on stage? And I was like, yeah, Kosha Dillz. And then right off the bat, I was getting roasted from the crowd. Oh, Kosha Dillz pickle, you know, and I'm like, oh, that's not a good look. Let me change my name. Changed to KD Flow. Boom. Came back as that, and then just really got into the battles. And that was just open mics and battles. And that was sort of what kind of was sort of like wrestling, but it was just like one-on-one, you know? I really like that. And that sort of has always been in my blood to do battle stuff.
So like, because I've seen videos of you outside in like New York, whether it's like after a football game, basketball game, I see like Fat Joe come up to you, a legendary rapper who's got all the respect in the world in New York, coming up to listen to you rap. I mean, is that just consistency in that, like, where did it change from when people were like starting to take you seriously as a performer and be like, wow, this Jewish kid's like actually a great rapper, not just a shtick?
Well, Fat Joe, that incident happened in 2021.
I love Fat Joe. So it was for me seeing that, yeah, man, like I'm into that old school rap.
Especially for people that are rooting for you, like when that's not happening and they're like, dude, give me some firepower so I could just go crazy. And so that was like a really like a nice, like good assist on my half to like the community that's like, yes, finally, now I could really come out and support you. But like 2009, I won the Hot 97 rap battle at Giant Stadium, which is like MetLife Stadium now. You know, where, you know, the Giants and Jets play. I know the Jets play there. I don't know if the Giants play there, but basically that had me open for Modest Yahoo. After that, it was like the shot heard around the world because I like kind of got a promotional deal from the record label called Duck Down. And I also got, just linked in with Asher Roth. And then I got in, who did I Love College. And like I got to open up and do a couple songs with him at his heyday, mind you, when that was popping in college. Like, that was an amazing experience to really be there. 2010, I got an NBA 2K11, the video game. I'm like a playable character nerd. They sold millions of games. You could be Kosha Dillz. That was like a huge thing for me because people were like playing NBA 2K and they're like, yo, I could be you in 2K. Like it sold millions of games, it sold millions and millions and millions of games. And then 2012, I had a Super Bowl commercial. And that was really, when my song was a Super Bowl commercial, that was a shot heard around the world because it played it in every single thing. Sadly, it was before Shazam happened. But like I really boosted my career financially. It also gave me the confidence to be like, hey, this is what's happening. And that, so I had some big hits before the Fat Joe thing. Fat Joe was like a product of New York when I moved to New York, and that really was up. In 2015, I was like in Warped Tour. So I had these little spurts, I had a Billboard charting. You sell all the albums physically, not on Spotify, but physically selling the album at a tour with Modest Yahoo and 311. So I had like these little things where I was like surviving. I think if I could have done anything better, I would have like, really gotten the management on songwriting and understood that process of like, and just for anyone, it's like, you see yourself as an artist and you're navigating in the public sphere. Being a songwriter is like the core values of like Jewish life, right? It's like the base. It's like the Torah. You know what I mean? This is like, you need a song to do everything else. Fat Joe, that incident was like the freestyle rap and the viral videos. That was sort of, it's a new thing, right? This, make a video, Instagram, go viral, get a bunch of content. Someone follows you, interviews you for New York Times or, GQ, and you're like Vanity Fair, you could do that from Instagram. And that was just a thing. Like I just took a commitment. I'm like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. This is my job. I'm going to rap outside the Knicks games and I'm going to stay by this location. And whoever comes out, I'll rap for. I rap for Fat Joe. I rap for Gary Vee. I rap for Mark Ronson. I rap for the Migos, for Offset. I rapped for Takeoff, who was killed. And that was a huge, like that video became extremely popular after and I was like dressed as Moses rapping for the Migos. Like I was just doing stuff and I'm like, oh, this is just a 40-minute train ride. And I was like, this is something I'm doing. But it took me hundreds of, videos of 5,000 and 10,000 views to get a video with 10 million. And that's ultimately that story of, I've struck out hundreds to thousands of times. And then you get a little blip of hope and then that keeps you going. And I think it's like that for every business, or anything,
Oh yeah. No, I mean, those are good odds. Like a good baseball player, like a real good one gets on base, like what, like 30%. And that guy's like,
that's huge.
And that's huge. Yeah. I mean, I think most of my successes have come from learning from failures and mistakes, Yeah. I mean, there's no other way. Otherwise, like if you can calibrate and pivot as you get older, I think that's wisdom, kind of. Everyone's going to make mistakes and be foolish, unless you're perfect, But okay. Well, because I always, I think in the podcast, basically what happens or what we're seeing is there's pre-October 7th, and then there's post October 7th. But I think with you, what's really important is your Jewish pride. So when you went on to MTV, I kind of want to talk about that. What year? What was that like?
That was right after the Fat Joe thing. There was like a succession of thing that happened from the Fat Joe moment in October of 2021 to like spring of 2022.
Spring of 2022.
And it's still true. I was just on MTV like yesterday, and I'm on the cover of like Wild 'N Out now. It's like
I guess what I'm trying to understand though was Kosha Dillz on Wild 'N Out before October 7th.
Yeah,
so that's what's beautiful. Is what I'm saying is like what something you got somewhere before a lot of us did with October 7th with your Jewry and your pride. I'm just trying to zero in on where that is, because before October 7th, I was still seeing like you, like a yarmulke guy on Wild and Out. And to me, that was so cool to have a Jew on there on this like show on MTV. And I just wanted to make sure it was before. And a lot of your songs, I know Bring the Family Home and stuff, but I remember seeing you 10 years before that in college looking up rap videos that were about Jewishness, correct? Like yeah. So when did you fully embrace Kosha? Because you said you switched, you went back, you were Kosha Dillz, then you went back.
2005.
Walk me through that. What is that? Why did you rediscover
I was
it?
like, for those that don't know, I was, I went to jail a few times, and then I got sober end of July 2004. At that point, I had songs recorded before I got arrested, and, I was like, oh, what am I going to do with songs? And I'm like, I'm going to put a vinyl out. I need to put the vinyl, and I'm like, I'm going to come out as Kosha Dillz, KOSHA DILLZ. And my record label was called Matzah for Your Mouth Records. It's like Matzah for Your Mouth. And it's still my PayPal. Like, if you ever send me money, it's like Matzah for Your Mouth. I've never changed it.
Don't ever change it. I love it.
No, it's epic. And just so you could imagine it, it was like a matzo ball, like really gangster in the center of the record, where the record is like a circle. And then there's this guy, and he has a yarmulke on, and he has these like, graphic eyebrows like this. And he's eating, he is a matzo ball, and he's eating a piece of matzah. It's like self-mutilation, I guess you could say. And I took that all the way through up to, Wild and Out. When I did the auditions, I had done the Fat Joe thing. And then all the other videos were catching on, because I was always posting the videos rapping outside the Knicks games. And there's still a couple people that do similar things. They're always making songs about it's just sports, and New York is just like an iconic thing. We're like also very talented. We almost always win. We get into the playoffs. It's the ups and downs of any, Chicago is also like, Chicago Bulls, Chicago Cubs, the stories about sports could go on forever about like the ups and downs of it. So I also did a music video with Nassim Black for Hanukkah. So I went from like a viral video to a viral song, and I never really had a viral song until after the viral video. And I'm like, okay, now I'm picking up what it's like to really get a song on the radio. I had a song on Z100. I was on Hot 97. So I got that audition, I was like, I'm Kosha Dillz, and, I have off, and I'm like, all right, I'm the bald guy. And I'm like, all right, I put a hat on. All right. I'm like, all right, put the yarmulke on. They're like, oh, Kosha. They really didn't get it. And it made me think, like, people don't really get it. Like, not everywhere. If you take Kosha outside of America, in England, Kosher Dillz, like, that's an American pickle. It's not like you go to Argentina, like, oh my God, Kosha Dillz. That's not the same effect as you. I live in New York. So you can leave out in New York, and I'm in like Atlanta in Georgia, and outside of Atlanta, mind you, people are like, what? They don't get it. In fact, there's another guy on the show who's just named Kosher, and he's a rapper, and he's like a comedian, and I knew him through MySpace, and he's not Jewish. And it was just an interesting experience to like bring that to a show. And I'm like, all right, let me just bring this out. So I have one girl there, Ormash, who's Israeli. And she is also like alternating between like Israeli and international, like girl with accent, like if you were like, oh, girl with accent, put her to front. Like, hey, you, I can't, everyone's like, what are you saying? Like no one could understand her. And that was like the joke. And for me, they were like, okay, this is Nick Cannon's apology. Perfect. Like, we'll just roast me. And that's sort of like, what it brought out. And it just kind of brought the playfulness of it. Like, I don't know, it taught me, and it still does. Cause like literally Monday, if you look at the Wild and Out page, like it's a picture of me right now. Cause it was just, we recorded you know, I was like 2 years ago, for October 7th, and just, all the episodes, how TV works, could be 1 year, two, or it could be like 2 months. It just is what it is. And it's great to be representation of it. Could have someone else done it? Maybe, but like, I mean, it's probably one of the most amazing times on television. You're just there, you're backstage, you're doing nothing, you're hanging out, and then you get up, you put your packs on, you go out, you have fun, and that's your job. And your job is to have fun and talk shit. And like, that's kind of what we all dream of, I mean, that's what we do anyway at work. We're like, to like navigate through our day, we just, use comedy. And that's when comedy came in. So I was rap. Once I realized I was getting on Wild and Out, I was like, oh, I have to be funny. I need to learn how to be funny. Like, I think I'm funny. You're funny. You're not funny, bro. Like, comedy funny. And it's so crazy to work on something for like 20 years or with rapping. And you're like, okay, this is dope. This is what I'm doing. And then you just sort of get on comedy. And it was like, it's like a new girlfriend, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I wasn't with you forever. You know what I mean? You're like, yeah. And that's kind of it. And you're like, wow. And then you meet the comedians, and you ever you could meet a bitter rapper, but if you ever meet a bitter comedian that's been doing it and then gets like a break, it's like amazing. And the comedian life is just wild, because it's just, I feel like it's even financially way tougher than to be an artist. And plus for me, like, I figured out how to make a living rapping. So this was just an extra home run. And the experience of being on Wild and Out is epic. We get signed to it, and you do multiple seasons of it, and it's fun.
Yeah. Well, what I think is really important about it is not anybody could have stepped into it. And that's what I realized even with the Chicago Jewish Alliance. I'm like, oh, if I didn't do it, someone else would have. Probably not, and you walked into it. First of all, is MTV very receptive to you just being the Jewish character, or do they what's the word I'm looking for? Characterize you as like the Jew? Are they cool there?
Yeah, I was the one cool. Like, I wanted to do it. Like,
that's so cool. Well, I just hope that the people, that everybody on our podcast and listening understand how important that is, that even before October 7th, you were walking on that stage unapologetically Jewish. And I don't think people realize how important that was, even like you yourself, until after October 7th. You probably realize what that means to us to see you on that screen.
I've always been that, by the way. Like, I was in the BET Cypher with RZA from Wu-Tang Clan. This is 2012. And, I met DMX, and DMX battled me. I mean, I had these things in like crazy moments. I rapped in Hebrew at Coachella. I was always like, I'm going to be the first guy to rap Hebrew here. And, barely any Hebrew in the Hebrew rap. But it's like, the point being is, the name Kosha Dillz comes from, hey, I'm a Jew. And before, Rami was like, I don't know what you are. You could be Middle Eastern. You could be that. You could be this. And, my brothers, Alon and Zach's name was Sachi, and they changed it to Zach. Just like if you meet a Chinese girl's name and her name is Sophie, it's not really Sophie. It's something else. And because it's just hard to pronounce in America. And that, like, people don't get it, but like, if your name is just David or Dan, like, it's a different experience to have a name, because a name is the identity you are given at birth before you even understand what identity is. As we get older, we develop our identity. I developed Matzah for Your Mouth Records. I developed Kosha Dillz. Like, I developed these other identities. So yeah, it is really powerful. And I can't tell you, when I was in Israel, how many people come up to me and they're like, yo, I love you on Wild and Out. I love you on Wild and Out. And I'm like, wait, how do you watch Wild and Out? They're like, oh, I watch Wild and Out. The entire world to know how many Black people come up to me at random places and airports, because I'll always wear my Wild and Out hoodie, and they're like, I love you. Or better yet, they'll be like, I fuck with you, like that, They're always like, I need a picture, and that happened. And, it's nice because, it happens with like old Jewish mothers too. And they're like, I love your content about it, so I have these two different worlds, and my dream is to put them together and then like have this big, party. So yeah, it's always been fun to me, but I've always been trying to make Jewish stuff cool. I can't explain. I mean, this has like been something I've always liked doing, and I've made it. I was kind of like on the forefront of making Jewish art. There's a couple of artists like Modesty. There was, my buddy Erez from Shemspeed, and now it's called Banks Media, and he does a lot of cool stuff and comedy shows. But we were doing music and trying to do film, and now I have now we have the film, and it's like all these worlds coming together. Wild and Out taught me, oh, dude, this is TV, but you really want to be on a TV show acting, or you want to do, this is like reality sort of live TV. And now you really want to do movie, or you want to do scripted so that's where we are now. And we're still on TV. Thank God. 4 seasons of Wild and Out. Ideally getting one more, maybe, hopefully get, if not, 4 seasons is a lot. I've been with people that, from Roxanne Shante to Cat Williams to Kevin Hart. And I'm talking about a guy that was rapping outside Madison Square Garden. And like 13 months later, I was on stage at Madison Square Garden for sold out Wild and Out show. So I went from rapping outside on the street to being inside on the stage at Madison Square Garden. Now, mind you, I didn't perform, but I was dancing. And then I ended up performing at the bar. I ended up performing the year after at the Barclays. But I could, you could have just gotten up there and swung, but I was there. And that was, for me, it was good enough, It wasn't like,
So so I said we kind of divide this in pre-October 7th and post-October 7th. And it does all seem, your story does all seem to lead to where I think we're going with this. But so you're a known Jewish person in New York from even outside of the Jewish community at this point. And October 7th happens, and you now have this Israeli identity that I don't have, by the way. So I'm not speaking Hebrew. I'm not thinking about, if I do speak Hebrew, will someone hear it? I'm not a visible Jew. You are wearing a kippah and people associate it with you. Walk me through your world, October 7th. And I'm talking people that you work with, people that you've rapped with, and maybe your own fiduciary duty to your people now, carrying that yarmulke through October 7th and the weight of that.
Well, on October 7th, I was in California playing a hip hop festival, and my boy El Ray came to DJ for me, and I was like, I got the news. I did the festival, and I was sort of like just navigating. I remember it was like a Saturday, and I don't post on Instagram on Saturday. Like, I'll stay off my phone. It's like sort of like a thing I took. And I went to the studio after the festival. There was another artist there, like yelling Free Palestine. Like it was always part of his shtick, though. So it was like, he was like one of those revolutionary hip hop artists. And we could book the studio time, bring the family home, put it out the next week. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, like, this was all unfolding. And we made a music video within 5 days, and already setting up media and interviews, etc. And I thought to myself, okay, this is what we have to do. Like, I need to do this right now. Came back to New York and just started making videos. And I ran the New York City Marathon. I did the Israeli flag, and there was a guy with the Palestinian flag. And that video got like 7 million. I was doing the interviews on college campuses. Those were getting millions of views. This is all within October, that was just like that October 2023. Mind you, I had just recorded, the last stuff of Wild and Out a few months ago. And to me, the the shows coming out, and I'm just like, kind of nervous. This is like next song, ceasefire, next song with everything that's going on, what's going on, music video, next song, and just like New York, shooting music videos of protests, like just go in, don't think about it. I was also like going through a breakup. I wasn't going through it. I mean, I was broken up with it. So that was like a whole thing before. And I really think we don't talk about it enough. Most of us came into October 7th with a gang of other life issues, and it sort of like was like extracted from us. Like God was like, here you go, get out. And then we feel all this other being inundated with media to sort of fill this hole within us. And then, keep navigating that, that was just like a real difficult situation to navigate for me. And I realized, I was like, dude, don't just stay focused. Just make this stuff. Just keep making these videos. This is what the world needs, your community needs, and keep putting out. And I did that, for like 7-8 months. And then that kind of brought us to Chicago, where we kind of did the shows. And I just felt like post October 7th, there was this void in the world. And everything I did up till then, sort of like 15 years of rapping as like the Jewish guy and always wanting to make all different kinds of content. It sort of just stepped right in to fill the void of like, hey, is there anyone going out to these protests in New York to do interviews, and who's doing it? And I was like, I guess I'll do it, and that was just like what we were doing. We were just making little movies. And at the end of all of them, we were like, bring the family home. So it was like, in my mind, I'm like, still sort of honoring my creative side, because I wanted to make a creative aspect to it. And I didn't want to, I would get the response. If I was there, I would just fight everyone. And I'm telling you, all these things would cross my mind. And when you're like surrounded and you're just like, oh man, what can I do to like really get to the bottom of like what is the core issue in these pro movements that aren't pro-Jewish, surely. And also, how can I show that to the world and see what you're doing, how you're listening to me? Imagine me being like this, and then you're just da 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 da, and I'm like, oh yeah. Ooh, you're like, it's that facial expression can make, and I don't have to say anything, because you're like, yeah. And then with all those little musics and chaos, it sort of says so much. So I come from, I need to rap and get all the words in, to listening and not saying less and being like, oh, okay. And figuring out how to make stuff based on what they're giving me, versus like a lot of times it's just like really this push and pull that I learned through rap and battle rap, and listening, going back and forth, and sort of the arguing, I guess, and debating. And it's a really interesting to navigate that. And people would all say, you have such a calming presence. And I was like, dude, I'm a fucking psychopath, really? And so it was just a really interesting time to create, because people started knowing me, not from TV, not from rapping, not from this rap, not from these songs. They're like, oh, I love your videos. And I really didn't like that. I was like, I don't want to be a video maker. I want to make a film. Like, I've always wanted to make a film, and I want to be, a rapper. I have all these songs. You don't know my songs. So I sort of tried to incorporate all of them. And, I've met a lot of really interesting people along the way that probably would have never talked to me if I didn't make the videos, but they did find my music. And, it's not about me, but I do think that I am grateful to be part of that sort of moment in time that I made stuff. And
I could not to the thing that makes you different. And I do think it's important people know this about you. Even when you were starting your film and everything, you are really an honest guy looking for truth, whether that manifests on the other side, our side. I think you're a real artist who's going out there trying to uncover the truth, not insert a narrative that you've already had, even being Jewish and Israeli. When I first met you, that's what struck me, was your honesty, your empathy. I remember there was something where, I was like very bandwagon-y, like, F those guys over there. And here you are, like, really trying to understand it. And then even when you were approaching your film, I remember speaking to you about imposter syndrome and what that's like. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this is a real one. This is a guy who's like so conscientious of his art to every component that he wants to make sure it's honest, including his own ego inserted into it. So I just think, and that comes out in your art. It comes out in your comedy. It seems very honest. It comes out in your rap. And now I've seen the first edit of this film. And you were in that theater with me. Everybody was cracking up because we related to an honest component. We didn't feel like you were just trying to do a pro-Jewish narrative. You really dug in there, and in doing so, unearthed the silliness on both sides. Right? I mean,
it was. That was that day. Well, it was May 11th, 2024. It was the Mother's Day bake sale that I performed at. And first off, saying that alone just is sort of wild that a rapper would appear there. But if you're like in the Jewish world, that is actually a norm. That is like not ironic. So you're there and I'm like on a bench and, and this was this time that there was this video I did where I took my rap box, my speaker, and I bring it up. And I went, it was a few weeks earlier and I was in Binghamton University and I didn't have my camera guy, Matt. Shout out to Matt. He who makes various appearances, and you have
big Matt fan though. Yeah, I like Matt a lot.
So I walk into this encampment. I was playing at like what was ever the May Israel Day event of a university, which every May and April I always do these events. It's kind of like in the trajectory of my career when I get a lot of calls. He wasn't there, so I just gave some girl a phone. She films me walking in, and they're like, "Free Palestine," and I'm like, "Bring the family." I'm like, it was just like the thing, and they were like surrounding me, and then I'm like popping out. Like the sound of the speaker stops, and then I like break out of the circle, and then you hear the music again, and people are like, "Oh my God!" Like it went viral in like this very anti-Israel community, very like hipstery, Dime Square, New York kind of vibe. And people are like, "Yo, what the fuck, man? Screw this guy!" And it made those people angry, but Jewish people were like, "I love this shit." And it was kind of like, I'm not trolling, but you gotta say, you know what? You're like, "Oh my God, that's horrible. Oh my God, that's horrible. Oh my God, that's horrible." But yeah, like, fuck those guys. Like, you know what I mean? And because it's sort of like, we're getting beaten up in a boxing match, 10 rounds, but there were like 2 rounds in there that we got it off. And a dude like knocked him down once, and you're like, yeah. And that sort of set the tone for when we started doing these events, that a couple other schools were like, "We want to book Kosha Dillz to do that at our school." And people were like, "We want you to perform at the encampments." And it's like, how did I get from sticking up for Jewish people to a point where like, we want you as a school, as an organization, we want to bring you to perform for us, and we want you to perform for them too. We're going to go to the encampments. And that was like a very small blip in the entire war where these college encampments happened. It was a very big one though, because it happened that 1 month was like very memorable on TV. It was like TVs could not stop talking about the encampments, and then they just move on from those stories, and it's on to the next. But I do remember that DePaul University experience was like, that's happening at DePaul. Imagine how many other places it's happening at. Who, worse, less? That was probably one of the worst. But when people are like, "Yeah, I hope Hamas kills you," and they're all family, and and I just thinking like, I was like, okay, like, I don't know, what are you supposed to say to it, and making that into a film and trying to translate that to the crowd and the audience. So like, that was the norm. And let me tell you, most places don't document that. And those people will end up finding out when the film becomes big that these people exist, and then they're going to find out about it. And I asked a girl in the encampment, she was a student body president at Columbia, Israeli girl actually, who did serve in the IDF. And, there's like 17 schools, what I learned at Columbia University, not Columbia College Chicago. And I said, how do people learn from these experiences? And they said, consequences. People do not learn from anything unless they pay the consequences. So if you cheat on a significant other and then you don't get caught, you keep cheating. But when your significant other throws all your stuff and says you're sleeping on the street, you don't live here anymore, then you're all of a sudden, oh, I'm sorry. Then you're sorry. You see what I'm saying? So when someone goes to and I guess in the film, as we do that, we had the thing with Facets Theater as when we went to go show it there. And then we saw the film. I mean, I think it's thinking that the film was supposed to be shown there and we were going to show a film of the film. So it would have been really creative. And we would have interviewed with Jeremiah, who was Hirsch's cousin, who people don't know is Hirsch's cousin. Also, he's black. So that kind of dispels the Jewish family myth of we're all white colonizers. And mind you, there's an adoption element in there. And people are like, oh, you have a black cousin and you're American. And some of the experiences at DePaul were just outright insane, and Northwestern as well. But they were not sorry at Facets Theater until they realized they did something wrong. They realized they did something wrong when they got 2,500 emails and that were getting media calling. And then they see the videos going viral, and then they had to shut their thing down. And that's going to happen again. And it's been happening around the world. Literally the same thing. If you look at the Toronto International Film Festival, A Road Between Us, the film that won the Toronto Audience Award, the Crowd Favorite Award, A Road Between Us, was canceled due to the same exact thing, security concerns. So basically what happens is, if there's anything related to Israel or Israeli or whatever, and you could even be pro-Palestine, they'll boycott you for the sake of boycotting. They'll threaten the theater, which is, respectfully to the theater, it's completely insane. So they're getting threats. They don't get that many calls even for tickets. So now you got 15 phone calls. And they're like, dude, what is going on? So we got to stop this. They're going to literally blow up our building. So imagine if people did that to airports and say, hey, we're going to blow up, blah, blah, blah. And planes are like, it's just not going to fly anymore. We're just going to stop. And they say, okay, now now you can start again. So essentially that is just, ideally, it'll show you the bigger picture of what is happening to culture and what happened to us. The cool thing is we still managed to show the film. But this is just an exact issue of when there is consequence, when there is a video, when there is something that shows the horrible things that are happening to people like myself, no other artist has to deal with that. No other country has to deal with that. If I was North Korea, they were literally, and talking about leaving, they were, being North Korean, I'm just, used to be in North Korea, whatever. I'm telling you. Russia, there's not people, they're not doing it. They're not like, oh, there's no Ukrainians outside being like, hey, this is Russia. You do this, we're going to blow your building up. There's no one doing that.
Right. As if like a Jewish kid 3,000 years ago represents everything the Israeli government does, or.
Yeah. And they make you want to talk about this, that, and a third. And I'm just like, I don't, but this has happened. For 2014, it happened. 2021, it happened. We just haven't been in a war this long for it to be experienced. So this is a moment of time, to a point where literally ecosystems have been created, post 10/7,
Well, so Bring the Family Home. This is a film that would you say is an accumulation of the history of Kosh, and it's kind of like, I mean, what is Bring the Family Home? We'll post links, and a lot of what you've been talking about, we'll be posting stuff in post. But this film that I saw an edit of, to me, what I can tell you as a viewer, it really, I don't think you were trolling. I think you were exposing, and I think you were doing that across the board. You literally ran in there with your comedic angle, with your rap angle, to really unearth a stone that a lot of people were too afraid to look under. And I think that there was this morbid curiosity from everybody to see what you were seeing on the front lines there at these campuses. So to me, when I saw the film, first of all, it's very funny. So you definitely get that across as well. But it was the first thing that I've seen on a big screen, to my opinion, that really represents and as somebody who is an advocate out there, what it really represented to be out there on the front lines. I mean, if someone wants to get an understanding of what happened in the last 2 years on college campuses, I don't think there is a better film than Bring the Family Home to see. I think it's the funniest, the most entertaining, but also you walk away with the best understanding of what it was like holistically, and with your own Jewish identity when you walk out the door and what it means, or what it meant to me. I loved it. And so I don't know what iteration you're in right now and how we can all be involved as a community, but I just want to hear it from you. Yeah.
One, thank you. Yeah, because you're really the only person that's seen it, because you were seeing it while we were still filming. So that was just, while that entire experience of getting canceled was happening, I was documenting what, this is in 2025 May, and now it's the fall of 2025. So it got canceled, gets uncanceled because of the pressure. Then they canceled again, and then they were just like, all right, do I go back now and like fight them? Like, is this the end all be all? And we were like, oh my God, when they uncanceled us, this would be like the best ending, and we're going to set it up and we're going to do a screening. But that wasn't the ending of the film. And I know better now, because the hostages, they've almost all come home. We still have our fallen hostages there. We have, I think, 13 or 12, if I'm not mistaken. And there's some that are being partially returned. And it's just it's a really never ending thing. And this should have been, it's just supposed to be agreed to, for them to be all returned by now. The incident of them coming home, I was in Israel. So when I found out the news, I was supposed to run a Chicago marathon. I was going to run a Chicago marathon. I was like, I'm going to run with the let's go, bring the family out, through. And that could have been an ending. But I instead deferred my marathon to, run 48 kilometers for the 48 hostages in Israel. I ran out in 2 days. Basically within 26 hours, I ran 2 of them. The actual hostage return, I was there documenting the night before, performing in the circle of Hostage Square, and then seeing them come home. And that's the new ending for the film, is that I'll have the first film to actually do a Bring the Family and Free the Hostages thing. And then the hostages came home and I was there. And I'm telling you, it was like, I'm getting chills saying it, because it's emotional to see it, and I was watching and like crying over my own stuff, not because it was about me, because I was like, oh my God, I could put this to rest. And now I could go back to making stupid shit, like, in my mind. But then I realized, actually, no, I can't. I can't do that, because there's still more stuff to do. And, and I interviewed with Yosef Haddad. He was there. And I was like, he goes, we keep fighting. We keep fighting. And I'm like, keep fighting? I thought the fighting's over, And I was at an event last night, this guy, Eitan Levine and Hen Mazig, and he's like, I think anti-Semitism is going to be over by March. And it's like, and then we'll be able to go on a Passover vacation. I just got a bunch of these books, Eli Sharabi Hostage. And I'm like, dude, this guy is like, this guy really took this. He's like, this is my experience, not mine anymore. It's yours. Here you go. And that's essentially what I'm trying to do. He's like, I'm a hostage. And I'm like, this is my thing. Boom, here. Now, mind you, he is a former hostage. Me, I'm just somebody that had a phone and had a camera guy and has a career. And I benefited off popularity post 10/7 because I was just there already. So people just drifted to pro-Jewish content. And this would happen to me every few years, bro. People be like, hey, man, I really, I'm trying to raise my kids. Like, I would just get messages from rappers or people. And then, Israel does something and innocent civilians killed and protests. And they're like, I got to unfollow him. So for me, I've seen this up and down in Jewish life. And it is, just part of what it's like to have that stigma attached to you. If you're proud and openly Jewish, there are benefits to it because there's another community out there that's searching for that, for a bond with you, based on that, not based on your talents. And also, you will get judged for it highly, and then that just comes with the territory, man. You know what I mean? Because you're in a world where people be like hot and cold, they're on like, let's go Team Israel. And they're like, all right, bro, I need to chill. Like, this was intense. I want my normalcy back. And I respect it, but I've sort of created it into my own normalcy. So, it wasn't the
But I mean, well, I guess not all the best. I just feel like Taylor Swift is wonder bread, but everybody else seems to represent, even these rappers that we're talking about. Like, I mean, they came out representing their community, just like how you're doing for us.
That's exactly what hip hop taught me. Everyone's like, okay, yo, you rep. And there used to be cultural festivals. There's a thing called the Trinity Hip Hop Festival. It was like the world culture. And I'm like, I'm the Jewish Israel, like, and I was dealing with stuff like this in 2007. I played my first Israel events in 2007. You got to think Bernie Madoff was still giving money to like Jewish organization. I'm serious. Like, that was a real thing. You know what I mean? I was performing on campuses in like 2006. And like Israel just withdrew from Gaza, like I was like a lot, like, you know what I mean? That was a thing, you could still go there up till 2005. Now, I guess ultimately what I feel about the film is that the film, with the ending of the hostages coming home, the theme, I guess, is that we're all hostage to this new thing. We became hostage to this mentality of freeing the hostages. Chicago Jewish Line started after October 7th, correct? There is a whole new ecosystem of things that started after October 7th. And there's jealousy of people that were doing it for years. Like, how is this organization doing? They just come out of nowhere. And you're like, you don't get it. Like if a new football league starts, it doesn't start with the old football team, the NFL. But if tomorrow there's the XFL, I mean, there's 20 new teams, there's a void, everyone wants to watch football. Right. So, now there's more. And for me, I really wanted to separate myself from a content creator because I was never really a content creator. I'm a storyteller and I have a whole long, huge story. And I wanted people to, learn to have this. The things that you're saying about the film to me is like, man, I can't tell you how long it's been since people reviewed something of me artistically. And you see in the film, Hollywood Reporter is writing about the film. Hollywood Reporter, I mean, you need a high-paid publicist to do this. No one's even seen the film, and already the film places are writing about the film. Isn't that crazy? And that's that's the exact thing I'm trying to show you, is that I've always been judged based on who I am and not the quality of my person. My identity is not the quality of my person. So now we're switching that to the quality of the story or the art, and this is like a story. It's a combination of music, a combination of, my comedy, a combination of like relationship loneliness and burying yourself into the like work. And, that's like a side plot of like, oh, the hostages are home and you're still single. Like, it's like, man, you've been doing all this for so long.
Well, you humanized it, to a degree.
But I guess, ultimately, people were like saying, oh, I know your stuff. And I'm like, that's not really I don't want to be known for that. So if I don't want to be known for that, then I have to take it into my own destiny. And I don't have time to wait around for anyone else to give me money to make my story. So I'm responsible for telling my own story, just like you're responsible for paying your own bills. And it's up to you. Like that's on you. You have to do that. So that's what I had to do.
Well, I want to emphasize to our audience here, because we're coming up on the hour, that you decided to make a film, and in order to preserve the integrity of it, even though there are a lot of people who know you and probably would want to throw shekels at you, you decided, no, I want to preserve the integrity of this film as an artist and tell this story. And so I believe you just launched a Kickstarter for it to raise money from the community, right? Correct?
Yes.
We can put the link right here. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And we've funded so far about half of it, about 25,000.
Wow, you just launched.
Well,
really?
No, I launched a month ago, actually.
Okay.
So it was a 2-month project, and I was like, okay, so I've funded halfway, and it's, we're at a slow point. So we really need to, like, every day, it's like, you want to give, if you want to buy vinyl, that the music comes with it, you could get a hat, you could get this merch stuff that comes with it. And you could also get unused footage for $100. I think that's really cool. You could get a shout out for $360 at the end of the film, which I hope plenty of the Chicago world will do. And then Kickstarter producer, if you want to be a Kickstarter producer, it's $1,000. Someone gave a $5,000 the other day out of nowhere. And but like random people at events that I never even met gave me $1,000, and they just saw me perform comedy. So I'm like, wow. I literally contacted someone yesterday. I said, "Oh my God, you gave me $1,000." Like, I thought it was a troll. I was like, "Did we ever meet?" And he's like, "Oh no, I met you in the Borscht Bell. I loved your stuff. I saw you play." And I was like, okay.
Well, I really hope people understand that, we give a lot of money to Jewish advocacy, and sometimes people forget the front lines of Jewish advocacy. It can manifest as art. It can manifest as Kosha running right into these kids and exposing them. But at the end of the day, really what you offer our community is strength. And at a time that we are malnourished as far as like, trying to find our own identity back to our Jewish people, you were there and you were holding a really strong light to the Jewish people. So listen, I want to thank you so much for being on our Jew Institute today. I can't wait to show this episode to our people. Everybody needs to go to your Kickstarter and at least donate $18, because you have been instrumental for us at the Chicago Jewish Alliance since that was like our second event at a Mother's Day event, and you were like, "Yeah, I'll do it." So
yeah, we
nothing
made it
but love here, brother. Yeah, seriously, I wish you just success, and we'll
Dude,
get you to Chicago.
So much. Yeah, man, I would love to get. I mean, obviously, I'm going to come to Chicago and show it. And it's going to come out in January. We're gonna. We've applied to a bunch of festivals. We have this updated thing. I've applied to the Berlinale, which is a really famous place in Berlin, the world's largest public film festival. And I really think that, collectively, we support people we don't know. Support your own people that you do know. And I'm telling you, your level of I'm open to bring people with me. I didn't want to take money from an organization because I don't want to have an organizational stamp on something that I did when we were just funding. I mean, you guys were there. We were just, it were just people just doing events, and it wasn't some big production. And I'll just end with this. I just did a documentary. I just interviewed for a documentary yesterday, and it's like a really big production. And the guy was like with ESPN 30 on 30. And, I looked at it and I was like, how do you guys really do it? And they say, hey, we do this, we make a sizzle, we bring it back to funders and contributors. And I'm like, man, the best success I've ever had was saying you get up and you go and you just figure it out along the way. And that's what you guys are doing. The CJA is definitely like, all right, next event. All right, no, this event. All right, next event. And it's really powerful. If you could get 10 people to like volunteer or, get paid minimal and just bring everyone together. And then, you're banking that, right now, let's eat crap for 6 months, but then someone's going to come in out of nowhere. And my career has proven it's like, just keep going. There's going to be a slow point. There's going to be a slow point. And that's what happened after they canceled us the second time. We were like, all right, it's slow. It's going to die down. And now, and when this comes out, it's gonna go back up again, and then we'll get these reviews by these big places, and then it's gonna be a thing, So the new song I made was Habaita. You could check it out, by the way. It's the end song to the film. I want to share that. And I shot the music video at Hostage Square after they were there. And I'm like, I got to shoot a music video here. I can't just end the film. So shot a music video.
And I love the sound of that track. It's like this slow jam. It's old school. I like it a lot. Yeah, man. I like it. Thank you so much, Kosh. Again, everybody at the Chicago Jewish Alliance, bring the family home. Check out all of Kosh's new stuff. We'll post all the links. Thank you so much for joining us today, brother. We'll see you soon.
See you guys.
Peace, bro. Bye.
We are joined by the one and only Kosha Dillz. If you've been around the Garden, especially during this past Rangers playoff run, you're very familiar with this man's voice, this man's face, unmistakable energy. Kosha, welcome to MSGPM.
Welcome. In artistry, it's like I want people to like me just for my music because I'm an artist, but now people only like me because I'm a proud Jew. I didn't sign up to be a proud Jew. It's just who I've been built to be.
Been looking in closer detail at the shocking events of early on Saturday morning. You can see people dancing at the Nova Music Festival. As the world debates the military response, 19 days since the worst terror attack in Israeli history, its leaders are trying to frame the stakes.
This is the Bring the Family Home tour, and Bring the Family Home is my idea of life after October 7th. I told myself I'm not going to watch the news, I'm going to make the news. And for me, I was like, I'm going to make my own news.
You have the nerve to support Israel.
What?
Get the hell out of here. I'm not killing you.
Okay. I don't like what's on the news. I don't like how the media pushes things. So I'm going to make my things, and you could cover me.
Are you mother?
Yes, I have a daughter. You have a daughter and 5 grandchildren.
Okay. So if they had 2 of your grandchildren and 1 of your daughters, what would you want them to do?
I would do everything possibly to have them back, yeah.
So if they stopped firing, then...
Bring the family home, we got the world saying, cry to death, I can't sleep, that's the worst pain. I remember tonight, the night the world changed, the line just roared, y'all heard me.
That's a wrap of this episode of Jew and Stew with the one and only Kosha Dillz, a true original who's shown what it means to show your own story, your roots, and your rhythm. From New York freestyle battles to Israeli heritage and everything in between, Kosha reminds us that being Jewish is not a limitation. It can be a superpower. If you love this conversation, check out his new project and support his Kickstarter for Bring the Family Home. Make sure to follow on social media and keep up with all his next moves. You can also watch or listen to the full episode of this podcast anytime on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Just make sure to follow, like, and subscribe, and check out ChicagoJewishAlliance.org for everything we got going on. Thanks so much. I'm Daniel Schwartz, and I'll see you next time. Follow the Chicago Jewish Alliance to stay in the loop and subscribe to this podcast so you can see what's coming next. We're going to have speakers that represent the entire spectrum of the Jewish community, from philosophical thinkers, from soldiers, people on the front lines of advocacy work on universities. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time.